Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a really fascinating and honestly a kind of frustrating paradox that affects almost everyone, even the most successful people out there. Why is it that right at the peak of our greatest achievements, we so often find a way to pull ourselves right back down? So let's start with a story. Picture this. A brilliant executive gets a massive, life-changing bonus. I mean, he is on top of the world. But on the drive home, something shifts. He walks through his front door and starts the biggest, most damaging argument of his entire marriage. He went from ecstasy to agony, all in the space of a few miles. Now, this isn't just some random, unlucky event. No, it's actually a predictable pattern of self-sabotage. You see it play out in our careers, in our relationships, in our personal growth. And it brings up a really crucial question about our fundamental relationship with happiness and success itself. Well, this pattern actually has a name, and just understanding it is the very first step to breaking free from it. It's called the upper limit problem. Okay, let's dive right in. The term was coined by psychologist Gay Hendricks, and the concept is this. We all have a kind of self-imposed glass ceiling on our own happiness. Think of it like an internal thermostat. When we push past that limit, when things get too good, an internal alarm starts blaring, and we subconsciously do something, anything, to bring our level of positive energy back down to a more familiar and what feels like a more comfortable setting. Now, here's what's really interesting. This isn't just some psychological quirk. It's actually rooted in our neurobiology. You see, our brains evolved to keep us safe, not necessarily to make us happy. They prioritize a predictable, known state, even if that state is kind of meh, over the unknown, unpredictable territory of greater success. Why? Because the amygdala, our brain's threat detector, can flag that new, higher state of success as a potential danger. Let's get into the analysis and see how this all gets built. Because that internal thermostat isn't just set randomly. It's maintained by four very specific unconscious beliefs that are almost always formed back in our childhood. These four barriers, they're like relics from our past. They're based on these false beliefs we picked up when we were young, and they create this massive internal conflict between our current success and that old, outdated programming about what feels safe. So here's the critical takeaway on this one. If you have this deep-seated belief that you are fundamentally flawed in some way, you'll feel this cognitive dissonance when things go really well. Your brain then has to resolve it, so it creates evidence, a mistake, an argument, even an illness, to prove that your original negative belief was correct all along. This one is a brilliant illustration of how we dim our own light. It's so common in people who were told not to show off when they were gifted kids. As adults, what do? They deflect compliments, they downplay their wins, or they avoid opportunities for visibility, all to prevent making other people uncomfortable. Now, these barriers don't just exist in a vacuum. No, they lock us into a predictable and pretty destructive loop. Okay, so here's how it works. It all starts with a breakthrough, a big win. This pushes you past your internal thermostat setting, which triggers the alarm bells, fear and anxiety. That discomfort leads directly to some kind of sabotage behavior that, yep, you guessed it, pushes you right back down into your familiar, safe comfort zone. And this sabotage isn't always some big, dramatic thing like picking a huge fight. A lot of the time, it shows up in really subtle ways that we rationalize as just being realistic or careful. It's that sudden nagging worry about a problem that's miles away, or the perfectionism that stops you from ever finishing that important project, or even, strangely, getting sick right before a major presentation. So it is absolutely vital to understand that while this cycle is powerful, it is not permanent. We can consciously choose to break it. The voices that enforce these limits, well, researcher Shirzad Chamine calls them saboteurs. These are basically mental habits and patterns we learned for survival back in childhood that, frankly, are just not serving us anymore as adults. You know, trying to fight these patterns with self-criticism is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It only strengthens the saboteur's grip. The real key is to first understand their protective function they were trying to help once upon a time, and then deliberately use your brain's own ability to change its neuroplasticity to build new, more supportive neural pathways. All right, now for the masterclass portion of this explainer. We're going to lay out a concrete, actionable blueprint to dismantle this cycle and start rewiring your brain for a much higher level of success and happiness. The very first step is just to catch the saboteur in the act. The moment you feel that familiar wave of anxiety or worry or self-criticism right after a win, Just notice it. And then label it. Say to yourself, okay, this is upper limit noise. That simple act of labeling creates distance. It interrupts the automatic reaction. Okay, once you've noticed the sabotage, you diagnose it. You play detective. Is this the fear of being fundamentally flawed? Is it the fear of outshining someone? By linking that feeling back to one of those 4 core fears, you expose it for what it really is, an old, irrational belief, not a current objective reality. Now, this is where you actively reframe the narrative. You consciously choose a new thought to replace the old one. So instead of, I don't deserve this, you might choose something like, I'm expanding my capacity for joy and success. You are literally replacing the old automatic thought with a new constructive one. And finally, and this is probably the most important part, you have to act. Your brain changes through behavior, not just through thought. So you take one tiny physical step that proves the old belief wrong. If you're afraid about shining, share one small win with a trusted friend. This action is too small to feel dangerous, but it starts building a new identity through real evidence. And this brilliantly illustrates what the real prize is here. Breaking through your upper limit isn't just about avoiding problems. It's about unlocking what Hendricks calls your zone of genius. And that is a state of flow, of creativity, of profound fulfillment, where you're not just excellent at what you do, you are uniquely you. So this isn't just some intellectual exercise. It's really an invitation to take one small action that contradicts your old limits and begins to expand your capacity for what's possible. What's yours going to be? Thank you for joining this explainer.